The war in Ukraine has changed the continent of Europe. Many of us did not expect, me included, to see such an illegal, unprovoked war in our lifetime. And of course it's a tragedy for the people of Ukraine, and it's very fitting and special that your president last night honoured them with an award here at this event. But it changes more than just the tragedy for the Ukrainian people. It demonstrates that illegal grabbing of territory, theft of territory, brutality using industrial scale warfare, which is more reminiscent of a world war, is back on our continent. And this, I think, disturbs everything. People will be worried, people will be anxious, people will be concerned, and they're right to be. The first thing to say is we should all be grateful that the wisdom of your leadership took the Republic of North Macedonia into NATO, and that gives you that support of being stronger together and something bigger. NATO membership, therefore, I remind everyone, is really important. And so everyone talks about EU enlargement, but actually the security issue of a military alliance under political control, which has been successfully defending 1 billion people for 73 years, is something we need to bear in mind. In terms of EU enlargement, the United Kingdom continues to support the Euro-Atlantic journey for the whole people of this region. And we continue to be a strong friend of the Republic of North Macedonia. We continue to work with North Macedonian people, civil society, and of course offer hope to the young people. The young people I meet here are so talented and so aware of their potential that we need to give them that hope. We also see, though, with my background and experience, I see now that security is not a narrow subject, it's a wider subject. Energy security has been weaponized by Russia. So we need to work together. The UK is willing to work with you to modernize, to support energy investment and make it more resilient for the future. We also need to work with you on infrastructure and foreign direct investment. And the UK, again, is a strong supporter of your country and your people in investment terms, and which is my summary point to your question. It is follow the money. It's the money from the West, it's the money from your friends, the United States, the UK, that tends to give you the investment which gives you that better future.
But I'm sure that some amount of money is coming from Russia as well, in this region, not just in this country, but in neighboring countries. How fragile are the countries to Russian influence?
Thank you for pressing me on this. I mean, Russian influence is not new. The region for centuries has been affected by that. And I say centuries on purpose, because it's not just not new, but the style of the Russian influence is not new either. The technology of mis and disinformation may be different, maybe technology that we're seeing on this interview, but actually propaganda and the disruption of truth and facts is not new at all. And so the influence can be bought, sadly. The influence can also be corruption. The influence can also be people who've been persuaded to take a different view of the world, and therefore it comes together in the state of Russia as an opposition to that westward journey, that Euro-Atlantic journey that the people have enjoyed. And this influence takes many forms. The United Kingdom is very happy to work with you to counter this. We do it with in many places with many different organizations. And it does take a lot of time and patience. But we must push back. We mustn't allow Russian influence to distort the facts and get in the way of a better future for your people.
You mentioned that there are a lot of talented young people here, but they would like to move. They would like to move at least around EU, in Europe. They are stuck now without EU membership. They cannot work abroad. There are some illegal ways. They are absolutely disappointed of the behavior of neighboring Bulgaria. The news coming today say they that official Sofia wouldn't lift the veto towards North Macedonia, whatever is the French plan that we're talking about, but we don't know a lot of details.
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. This is a very timely question, and it's very topical, and events are changing, moving quite quickly. So it would be wrong to comment on events that are unfolding. But we need to stay, I have a phrase from my military experience, to stay steady now. And I understand that this spills over into uncertainty for young people in particular, and many families. And I understand that, and we're sympathetic to that. The UK continues to work quietly in support. But it's very much a bilateral issue, we'll have to see. But my position, our position in the British government is very clear. We support your people through thick and thin, through many decades. We support that Euro-Atlantic journey, and we support it with actions, investment and friendship and civil society links. We don't support it just with statements. But we'll have to see what happens in the next few weeks.
Can you see what stays behind? Is it only a bilateral question? Is it only a burden from the history?
It's complicated, and I'm always nervous wading into conversations on history in this region. And it was British Prime Minister, Mr. Churchill, who said the region creates more history than it can consume. So I'm very wary of this for understandable reasons. But it's not 1890, I'm not picking dates carefully enough perhaps. It's not 1990s, it's 2022. There's an illegal war in our continent in 2022. So it's now time to work together with our neighbours, with our friends, with your allies, and resolve as many differences as we can to give that better future.
What about the relations between Belgrade and Kosovo? Can you see any step further in normalization of the relationship? Or
this is an important question, and it's an important question for this dialogue. And the UK government's position and my own position is very clear. We support the dialogue. It is a dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina, and it is a dialogue facilitated, supported by the European Union, and we support that. And we look forward to prospects of progress as soon as we can.
We regard you as a friend of this region and a person who knows a lot about the Balkans. Can you see an improvement in general in the last couple of decades?
Of course I can, and every time I come here I see an improvement. The infrastructure is improving, perhaps not as quickly as I would have hoped, and I think infrastructure improvement is a big question for you and your neighbours. And here we are in this beautiful place. We need to protect and preserve our environment. Therefore, for energy modernisation, it has to be a cleaner future as well as keeping the power running. And then, of course, it's about providing that investment which gives the innovation. I can see prospects for your talented young people to move quickly into the new industries which we all need for that better future.
What about this general question? We started this conversation from the war in Ukraine, how long it could take, what are the I don't know, the prospect not just for the people there, but for whole Europe?
Well, we see all the negatives. We see the millions of refugees. We also see that the other side is, of course, the compassion that the North Macedonian people and many other people in the region have shown towards those refugees. But then we see the built environment of Ukraine being deliberately destroyed by Russia. We see the casualty rates against women and children, as well as, of course, tragically, the soldiers who are being killed and injured. So we see that as a terrible tragedy for the whole of Europe. And of course, the effect spills over. It makes people nervous and concerned. The effect of millions of refugees creates distortions, as well as, of course, the compassion that is being shown to them. It also continues to worry me that the food security is now becoming a bigger and bigger problem, which reminds me, as one of my early experiences was doing a degree in geography, that actually strategic geography doesn't change, that actually the rivers, the ports, the ability to move goods to where they need to be, the grain that we need to get out of Ukraine, the way in which we should use the rivers, we should develop our railways and our airports and our ports. These may seem like difficult, long-range, long-term questions for the people listening to this. But if we don't start, we won't make the improvements necessary to keep the people in the region where they belong and need a better life.
Does it mean that democracy is losing in terms of new changing in the world after the war?
The alternative of autocracies and a return to the old centuries is not a better future.
How divided Europe will be next year or 2 years?
Well, we have to
after?
all work together. Governments, civil society, academics, thinkers, everybody, industrialists, we all need to work together to counter these negative trends and not wallow in the negative trends and allow democracy to be undermined and allow civil society to be affected. And of course, I worked as the military head of NATO throughout the pandemic, and we mustn't forget that people in Europe, across the globe, but particularly in Europe perhaps, since we're in Europe, have had a tough few years, and so they deserve good governance for the future.
Just shortly, a message towards Sofia. What would be your message towards Sofia?
Well, we continue to work where we are friends with Bulgaria as a NATO ally, and we continue to support the European journey for the whole of the continent, the Euro-Atlantic journey. And so we continue to seek a strong friendship and also expect Bulgaria to fulfill its obligations.
Several British representatives in the last months, they were worried about the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Are you?
I am worried about the situation. Thank you for asking me. I'm worried about the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We must make sure that political disputes, political arguments don't become security problems. And that is my message on Bosnia and Herzegovina. I personally support the international forces presence. We must sustain that. Both the European Union force, Althea it's called, and the NATO presence in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's, in many ways, it's a pity that it's still needed, but it is still needed. We continue to support the Office of the High Representative and the person in it, Christian Schmidt. Again, maybe it seems odd that it's still needed, but it is still needed. So we must not allow political disputes and issues to become security problems, and that's my message.
Do you see the whole region in 10 years, let's say, a member of EU, or the alternative plans which are on table will be more actual, like Austrian plan, French plan?
There are many plans being talked about at this event. We are simply committed to the Euro-Atlantic journey, a better future involving democratic values, the rule of law, good governance, and human rights.
So Stјуарт, thank you very much for this interview.